Good morning, Sense of Things. It's Jeff and Ron here once again, and another episode of the Sense of Things podcast. And we have been in a crazy week over this last week here. We've seen the market drop 1,000 points in a matter of hours. We've seen all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the economy and hiring and everything else. So we're going to cover that a little bit today. Ron's going to take the reins on that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, folks, welcome back. We are so excited to be here today. Ron, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Doing well. I got to tell you, you and I have been bears for 18 months now. I don't know. I thought we had a sniff of this a year ago, almost the exact same time of the year.
Yeah.
And now we see it again, and we got the cycles with the presidential election. So I wanted to talk about some recession indicators because even though the market has been melting up, the economic trend has been going down on many key things, but nothing is broken. But before we get to that, let's have a little bit of fun. In a prior podcast, we had talked about movies from 40 years ago and just classic movies. And we talked about how much I'm a movie guy, you're a movie guy. And I thought it was interesting, but let's go through some of the movies from 1994.
Oh, wow.
These movies, like you could turn on at any point, know what's going on, and just sit down for 15, 20 minutes because you're engaged.
Yes.
Even Speed, which had Keanu Reeves, I'm not the biggest Keanu Reeves fan, but that was a good movie for him. And overall, it was terrific. Speed 2 was just a prostitution to try and get some money.
Extra money, yeah.
Shawshank Redemption, please. Pulp Fiction was just on last weekend. I watched the whole thing from beginning to end. True Lies, you could turn that movie on at any point. I don't know why. I don't know. I forgot what won the Academy Award that year. Here are some of my honorable mentions.
Clear and Present Danger, great. The book was even better.
Yeah. Now, did you ever see, I didn't see this till many years later. Did you ever see Disclosure?
Yes. It was a very strange movie.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, it was about Silicon Valley. It was actually up in Seattle, but it was about the tech world just when the internet was burgeoning, although this really didn't have a lot to do with the internet, but it was about state-of-the-art, bleeding-edge technology. Obviously, there was some salacious stuff in there, but it still holds up today.
Yeah.
And then, of course, for crying out loud.
Here's the funny thing. Out of all these movies, I have never once seen Shawshank Redemption, ever.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I think I'm the only human in the United States that's never seen it. And I've only seen the Hudsucker Proxy one time. That one just never did it for me. Ace Ventura, the butt humor just doesn't do it for me. And Pulp Fiction was just weird.
But you know what? The one thing I left off, and I didn't realize this, was Forrest Gump, was also 94.
Yep.
And another classic movie, you could turn that on at any point.
And,
you know
and
that they were
enjoy
going to
it.
do a remake of that. Winston Groom wrote Forrest Gump and the follow-up. So Forrest Gump was this rise of Forrest Gump. And the sequel book to it was how everything he did after that turned to crap.
Okay.
And I understand why they didn't make the sequel, because the first one was uplifting.
It was
you're rooting for this guy. Why would you want to watch something about everything he does turns to crap?
Yeah. Yeah. And why would you even write And why would you even write a book about it, everything in his life turning to crap? You built this beautiful character. Why on earth would you do anything that just makes it? You can't make a movie. You can't really even write a book that doesn't have any kind of redeeming anything. It's just, it doesn't even follow the right storyline at that point.
No, not at all. But I can't believe, you know what? It doesn't have any butt humor, but you better watch Shawshank Redemption this weekend.
Yeah, I've needed to watch it. I just haven't. There was just one of those things where I love Morgan Freeman. Anything that he's in, I
Oh, he's
absolutely love.
fantastic in that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. But, like I said, like Clear and Present Danger, I think out of all the movies, it was one of my favorite movies because I thought it just was one that was extremely well done of
You
Tom
can't beat
Clancy's
The Hunt
book.
for Red October in 1990 when that
Nope.
came out.
Nope.
And they couldn't come to terms on a contract with Alec Baldwin. So
Yeah.
they said, screw you, and they got Harrison Ford. And Harrison Ford leaped at the opportunity.
And just crushed the role.
Yeah.
I
And
think
I'm not a big Harrison Ford guy either, but he was very
yeah.
good.
Yeah, he was very good. And a couple movies with him in there, and he just did an exceptionally good job.
I got you. All right. I have a movie bucket list that I send out to all prospective clients and clients.
Yep.
And it's great for great conversation and fodder. And I have check boxes so they can check off what they did. You've got to watch Shawshank Redemption. My God. I thought you were one of my best friends. Now I don't even know who you are anymore.
Okay. Have you watched the entire 6-movie Thin Man movie series?
Which one?
The Thin Man.
Thin Man? No.
Yes. They're from the 1930s and 40s. Possibly the best movies that were ever made, hands down.
F-I-M-A-N?
No, Thin Man, Thin. Thin Man. Myrna Loy and crap, what's his name?
I don't know. We could do movies every episode.
There we go. I love it.
No doubt about it, because there's always a good behind the scenes conversation about half this stuff. All right.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. All right, guys. Part one. Recession indicators. And again, Yahoo Finance had some good stuff. We're going to talk about the SOM rule here that just triggered. So stocks outperforming the S&P 500 at a historic low. Here we are. We were highs, right? The first part of July.
Yep.
But meanwhile, the highest percentage of the S&P 500 stocks were at lows, historic lows. So again, we kept talking about how it's the top 10 stocks that are just outperforming the market. And we realized that over history in the market, there's always 10 stocks that are outperforming the market.
Sure.
But the disparity, the percentage breakout was just too much. I know you and I have talked about this in the past. Ignore that.
Yep. Never mind.
You pause.
Yep. Go.
All right. So another recession indicator is the SOM rule. That must be Claudia Som calling in to do her slide right now.
There we go.
So this is interesting. Claudia, I didn't realize she's actually a younger lady. I thought she might have been like the Janet Yellen type, but she's actually pretty young. And she actually developed this indicator 2019. I just saw her on a podcast about a week ago. And she worked for the Fed and she came up with this rule. She's a PhD. I won't go through everything. There's a couple of nuances to this, but essentially when the unemployment rate is 50% above the 3-month moving average of the national unemployment rate, it triggers, and it just triggered. It hit 0.53. Now I have a longer term data chart because it goes back to the 60s. At any time it hit above that 0.5 trigger, there was typically a recession within 3 to 9 months.
Okay.
And I had 6 to 9 here, but when I actually went back, some of these things happened within a month or 2 months, but I would say the average of the medium is within 6 to 9 months. That almost a certainty of death and taxes that there is a recession. Now, in these podcasts, she's been interviewed, and she says that there's a lot of other underlying or underpinning factors here that may not apply this time because of all the immigration and them getting jobs and all this other stuff she went into. Oh, I always hear the info saying, this time it's different. Okay, tired of hearing that crap. This time,
every time I hear that, the hair on the back of my neck.
Oh God, I get more than just the hair on my back. You look at this and you're just like, all right, look, for the last 60 plus years, this has been a pretty damn good indicator above and beyond the 210 inversion, right?
Yeah.
Which we are now in the longest period of the 210 being inverted in history. And it's been shown the longer inversion, the worse the recession is.
Mhm.
We'll see. There's got to be a catalyst. We've seen all the economic numbers coming down over the last 12 to 18 months. We'll have to, and then obviously this may be the denouement.
Yeah.
This may be the final nail that says, yeah, there's a recession. I don't hope for it. I know you don't hope for it,
No.
but you
But
know,
we know it's gonna happen. That's the thing. We know it's going to happen, and it's the market cannot just keep going forever. It is a normal thing for us to go into recession. It's a normal period of throughout
the
time.
flush out.
We've seen this. It flushes the market out. And if you look at the chart that's on here, for those of you that are listening, you can't see this, but you might want to look up the Somme rule chart, and we can put a link to that, the one that's in here in the show
It's the
notes.
St. Louis Fed. This is the
Yeah,
chart.
yeah, Fred. Which, all right, we're not seeing it at those peaks, but look at where those peaks typically happen. The peaks typically happen as the recession is ending. The recession typically starts when it's
Always looking
relatively low.
backwards. Yeah.
And we're just now spiking upward and heading upward in that. At some point in time here, I would think relatively soon, I believe that 3 to 6 months is a possibility. We could be in recession. And I think some of the numbers coming out of the Fed and some of the numbers coming out of the government with GDP and things like that, they go back and they revise them, and it's not the headline numbers. I don't know if they're really wrong or they're really just not wanting to report what's happening at this point,
Okay.
but yeah, I believe it.
Yeah, Cameron Howard, I got in part two, I have one of his slides. He's an economist, and I started learning a little bit about him. He believed that the Fed should have cut in January.
Mm.
We've literally been in even a mini recession the end of last year to the beginning of this year,
Yeah.
and that they should have cut there, that they're not just behind, but they're way behind.
Mhm.
So in part two, we'll go through some
Yeah.
of those other indicators.
But if you look at history of the Fed, they've always been
They're
behind.
always behind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They're always late to raise rates, and they're
Yep.
always late, typically way too late to lower rates.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to say that I would have been disappointed if they would have even lowered even a quarter of a point this month,
Mm.
or I'm sorry, is it July, right? The end of July. But like I said, what is a quarter point going to do? Nothing. But
Nothing.
psychologically, it's begun. It's
Yeah.
begun. That means the economy's getting
Well,
worse.
but the problem is the market will probably go down because they've been pumping, they've been expecting this for
Yes.
months, and now all of a sudden it's gone down. That was the part the Fed chairman last week, Powell. He said we probably will start in September, and then of course the market gets unwound the next few days because now it's actually happening. We've got to sell because we've pumped this thing up at this point. So it's like a combination of a bunch of things that all happened at one time. So quite frankly, we're still under the 100-day on the S&P and under the 100-day on the NASDAQ. I still don't believe that it's all over and it's going back up.
I think we're going to hit the 200-day on the S&P, which is around 5,000-ish plus or minus, but we'll have to see. There's no doubt we need a bit of a flush out.
Yep.
We'll see what happens here. September is historically the worst month of the
August
year.
and September are the two
October's
worst
the
weeks
second
or
worst
two.
month,
Yep.
but October's typically the month of bottoms, like
Yep.
it has been the last two Octobers. I think history is going to repeat itself for the third year in a row.
Mhm. Yep. I'm right there with you.
All right, so that's part one.
All right, folks, thanks for joining us on this. Make sure you join us for part two of this. It'll be right after this one. So make sure you join us, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.